The creators of Assassin's Creed Odyssey are coming with a completely new game this February called Gods and Monsters. We saw this trailer at E3 2019 at the end of the Ubisoft show that did not really tell a lot, but I got an interview with the developers and learned way more about the gameplay, the overall structure, and a ton of other things that I want to discuss here in this video. So let's get into it. Would of course be awesome if you could leave a like on the video as it shows your support. And let's go. I'm currently doing a second giveaway for an E3 2019 game of your choice for your platform of choice. So totally follow the link in the pinned comment for a chance to win. Be sure you are a subscriber of the channel before you enter. And maybe I will reach out with a pre-order code for your favorite E3 game if you win, including Gods and Monsters. So when they note that the creators of Assassin's Creed Odyssey are working on this game in the trailer, they really mean the entire Odyssey team. So more than 300 people in Quebec and 300 other people from several Ubisoft studios around the world are working on this game. And this according to the Canadian Journal de Quebec website, and I hope I pronounced that right. So how they described it to me is that this is just a continued collaboration between all the Odyssey teams with the people who are finishing up the Atlantis DLC or likely are done at this point, will be joining the Gods and Monsters team then as well to help with the development. So yes, this is supposed to be a big game, full priced, coming to PS4, Xbox One, PC and Switch as well. I will talk more about the size of this game in a second, but first, what is Gods and Monsters? In short, I would say it's a lot like Zelda Breath of the Wild, but with a big focus on the Greek mythology. The Olympians have been defeated by the Typhoon, the biggest and baddest monster Zeus has ever faced, and you see a random picture of this creature from Google here. So what happened is that the Typhoon released all sorts of minions from the Greek underworld into the world of this game that we have to battle, like Cyclopses, Gorgons and also Harpies, and we of course saw one already in the trailer. And this means that the combat is not only grounded as we saw in Odyssey, but actually will take place in the air a lot as well. You have a double jump and you can actually use abilities in mid-air too to deal damage to these flying creatures or actually get to higher places. Because Gods and Monsters is a platform game as well, where you have to time your jumps and watch your stamina when trying to reach the next platform, for example. But you can also use this to your advantage in the combat. Or Ubisoft actually gave an example of how you can escape the combat by jumping on a rock nearby and then do a double jump from that and glide away from the enemies that would have otherwise killed you. Yes, you have a bird that you can use to glide, maybe Banjo-Kazooie style, I'm not really sure. Not everything will be unlocked from the start. There should be points that you can spend wherever you want to upgrade your character. There is loot to collect, a little more on that later, and you can actually customize your whole character, like you can pick a male or female that both have their own voice, change the different body types, customize your hair and select a beard if you want. But yeah, of course, the armor that you find will also impact your look. They called it a game with light RPG mechanics, so I would not expect the same amount of stats and build options that we saw in Odyssey, but they did note in a GameSpot interview that new armor can increase your stats or give you increased stamina gauge. So curious to see how deep this will go and of course what kind of armor sets we can expect. A big part of the progression will also be about new abilities that you can use in a sort of similar way compared to Odyssey. You unlock some of them by doing quests though and interacting with the many gods that you will meet and forge a relationship with. Like Zeus is a character that we can for example meet, and I would totally expect a ton of other Greek gods in this game as well. The goal is to take out the minions from the Typhoon and the Typhoon itself, but how you do that should be up to you. You can do the quest for these characters in the world or just fight the minions and just find your own way in the game. Gods and Monsters should be pretty open and give you a lot of choice of where you want to go. The game takes mostly place on an island called Island of the Blessed that should have 6 different biomes that should look and feel different. We should not expect the same map size as Odyssey Odyssey, not really weird, that game was enormous, but the map from Gods and Monsters will still be pretty big compared to other Assassin's Creed games. They mentioned 8 times the size of London from Syndicate, and that is excluding the underworlds that you will be visiting via special doorways, and those are special areas. Sound a little bit like Zelda dungeons, likely with some challenges in there. And the versions of these underworlds will be different compared to Odyssey. But still kind of the same idea, I would think, that you venture into these different Greek mythology inspired locations. And while exploring the world, you will hear the Greek poet Homer narrating the whole thing. The game starts with him sitting at a campfire with his grandchildren, telling the story that you, the player, will be playing. So he will be your guide while you venture into this mythical world and share insights on what you're seeing. So a completely different narrative approach than we normally see in big AAA games, and I'm curious how this will impact the cutscenes and your interactions with the characters in the world. Will you talk to each other, or will Homer say what the characters are talking about, if you understand what I mean? Kind of hard to say how this will pan out, but it is an interesting approach for sure. Where Gods and Monsters really sounds like Breath of the Wild is the interaction with the environment and the puzzles that we should expect. So you will need to use your physical abilities for these puzzles to solve them, to maybe get through the underworlds. But the interaction with the environment can also be used in the combat. You can, for example, cut down a tree and then throw it to a Cyclops, who can then also grab it and throw it to you. So the enemies should also be able to interact with the world and grab things to use it as a weapon, for example. There should also be tools that you can use that they did not really want to talk about yet. This E3 reveal was really more a tease, and that's why we only have this short trailer and some screenshots. Maybe we can expect a bigger blowout, maybe in August during Gamescom or before that. February is approaching, and we saw way more of Watch Dogs Legion that is coming out later than this game. So all we can say is that Gods and Monsters sounds promising. We know that the game is in good hands. We got Mark Alexei Coute, and I hope I pronounced it right, the senior producer on this game. Jonathan Dumont, the creative director, and Scott Phillips will be the game director on this game once again, just like they were with Odyssey. The only thing that I'm kind of worried about is the development time, as they started working on this game when Odyssey was finished. So October 2018, and then less than a year and a half later, they want to have a completely new full-priced game. Is that long enough? I would say on paper, no, not really. And that it's set in the Greek mythology will help, of course, because they already have a lot of knowledge about it. But it still seems like a really short development pipeline. We got Jason Schreier from Kotaku speculating based on the things that he heard about the game as well. And if you remember the video that I did before the Ubisoft press conference, where we talked about some rumors that were going around, one of them was Jason saying that we should expect a game with the art style from Breath of the Wild, and here we are with Gods and Monsters. So what Jason is saying is that Ubisoft needed something for this fiscal year to meet the sales expectations from the investors. Because sure, Ghost Recon and Watch Dogs are big franchises, but not compared to Assassin's Creed or The Division or Far Cry. So maybe they needed something else to put in this fiscal year, so they would not have a kind of down year compared to the previous years. We of course also have the delay from Skull and Bones that they likely did not anticipate. That game will now launch after March 2020. So yeah, it's pure speculation and some insights from Jason, but it just seems like a short development cycle. But yeah, hard to judge how this game will turn out. It would be impressive if they could make a big open world action adventure title in such a short period of time. Another question this raises is of course who is making the next Assassin's Creed now. Ubisoft has 2 main studios working on Assassin's Creed, they announced in 2018. One in Montreal and one in Quebec, and Montreal is obviously up next with the rumored Viking game that seems to launch next year according to rumors, and then Quebec should bring the next Assassin's Creed game, right? I do have an idea of what is going on here and what is going on at Ubisoft Quebec. It paints a very interesting picture as well for the future of the series. I will talk more about that in another video that will be up pretty soon. For now, I'm curious to hear what you think about Gods and Monsters. Is this something you are interested in? It's definitely a much lighthearted take on the Greek mythology compared to Odyssey, and they talk about the fact that they want this to be more accessible. So let me know what you think about that in the comments. I just want to wait till we finally see gameplay and maybe till I get my hands on it. I will keep an eye on Gods and Monsters, so totally subscribe for more on this game. A like on this video would be super appreciated. Check out my other E3 2019 content, for example on Watch Dogs Legion. And for now, I will speak to you next time. Goodbye.